She put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. A friend of mine actually called me and he said, Kamala, my wife got the letter.
Wow.
She freaked out. She brought all the kids into the living room, held up the letter, said, if you don't go to school, Kamala's going to put you and me in jail. Yes, we achieved intended effect. Going without an education is tantamount to a crime. So I decided
This is Kamala
I was going to
Harris.
start prosecuting parents for truancy. Well, this was a little controversial in San Francisco.
And she's just
frankly,
laughing.
my staff went bananas. They were very concerned because we didn't know at the time whether I was going to have an opponent in my re-election race. But I said, look, I'm done. This is a serious issue, and I've got a little political capital, and I'm going to spend some of it.
Yeah.
And this is
So,
what we did.
Let me say this. Thank you for checking out another podcast of We Ain't Scared Talk, where we ain't scared. My name is A1, and that opening recording was between Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii actually just serving Kamala Harris her hind parts on a silver tray. So there's a lot going on in this political season, this climate. I mean, part of me, I just feel like we've just entered the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Carnival Barker sideshow part 2. And it started with 45 and his big bozo orange wig. But ultimately, we are now trying to find a suitable replacement for this moron. And I'm going to keep it real. I am not completely convinced about anybody at this point. I feel like we have jumped the shark, come off the rails, and I just don't think that no matter who it is, that it's going to fix, solve, or resolve what my biggest concerns are. Number one, reparations, and then number 2, race relations really being dealt with thoughtfully, respectfully in America with 3 Ks. And I don't like to be pessimistic, but I'm trying to hold on to a sliver of hope that this will resolve itself reasonably. But reparations. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this. So thank you to everyone that's checked out the show. Subscribe. And thank you to everyone that listens that isn't scared. Listen. Fight for your rights to liberation and don't apologize. The mugs, We Ain't Scared Talk mug. Thank you to everyone that has picked up their mug. I appreciate that. And starting to put out some requests for people that have purchased them. Tag me on some photos and, I'll post them, put them up. And let's see. So let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. Now, I'm going to just tell you this. It is about election. The topic of today's show is a black vote really a white vote? Okay. Is a black vote really a white vote? So in other words, when a black person casts their vote, is it really just another white vote? And I do have copious notes as usual, and I've tried to cut it down. I really did try to trim it. So I'm going to just jump in and let's see what happens. So as usual, I want to give you some backstory on where the idea for the podcast came from or comes from. So the idea sort of germinated from a social media post where I mentioned that I did not like Kamala Harris, which I don't. And it's not because it's her politics, not her personally. Let me be clear. That's the distinction. Her politics, not her personally. And I often struggle. I mean, we always split hairs. Well, it's not unlike you. I just don't like your politics. I almost, even though I don't believe in it, like, let's use the devil. Well, it's not that I don't like the devil. I just don't like the flames that accompany him. It's like, really? How do you separate? But anyway, let me move on. Just some of the dumb things that people say. So when she was district attorney or an attorney general in San Francisco, she did the following. Okay. Her, number one, her controversial record on criminal justice issues. All right, and I'm reading this from an article, let's see, Kamala Harris Campaign Criminal Justice. It's on Vox.com, Vox.com. So you can just Google Kamala Harris and you'll find it. So her controversial record on criminal justice issues, it's this record that has led some critics, contrary to the progressive reputation that Harris has tried to build. So she tried to present herself as one thing and go figure, as a politician, underneath it all, she was something completely different. She came in as tough on crime. I'm going to be tough on crime. And this goes back to the era of the 1990s and 2000s. Now, a generation after Democrats embraced this ideology, tough on crime policies, go figure, the prison population swelled. And at that point, progressive activists, they're pushing to make criminal justice system, as they should, less punitive and racist. And it boggles me that people still struggle with, well, the criminal justice system is not racist, even though 90% are black and 10% are mixed. It's not racist. Please, it's racist. So in her career, Ms. Harris did not even try to barter or trade to get the support of more conservative law and order types. She just gave it away. She said, look, you're conservative. I'm not going to try to barter with you. Whatever you want, whatever you say, I'm just going to just let it fly. But you're here to be a progressive. Why would you just basically turn over the hen house to the foxes? Makes no sense unless you're a fox, a wolf in sheep's clothing. All right. So, and this was written by Laura Bazelon. She's a law professor at Loyola Law School. So here are some more of Kamala's contradictions. So upon a close examination of Harris's record, it shows that it's filled again with contradictions. She pushed for programs that help people find jobs. Okay. And instead of putting she pushed for them to find jobs instead of putting them in prison, but she also fought to keep people in prison, even after they were proved innocent. What? She refused to pursue the death penalty against a man who killed a police officer. Okay, seems good, right? But also defended California's death penalty system in court. She implemented training programs to address police officers' racial biases. Okay. But she also did what? Resisted calls to get her office to investigate certain police shootings. So it's this 1 foot in, 1 foot out, one toe in, one toe out. Her race and gender likely made this balancing act even tougher. Okay? Because in the studies, what they found, and this is really shocking, that 90% of elected prosecutors are white. 90%. As far as I'm concerned, it might as well be 100%. And more than 80% are males. Might as well be 100%. 100% of prosecutors that are white males, and that's why we're here, because of their perception. Now, as a black woman, Harris stood out, inviting scrutiny and skepticism, especially by people who may hold racist stereotypes about how black people view law. Wow. So, she was basically struggling with trying to be that black woman without basically giving into her concern for black people because she wanted to be perceived as tough in front of her white male counterparts. The reality is, Kamala, black people are not supposed to get into these positions to be tougher on black people, just to prove to white people that we can be tougher on black people. Oh, it's that good old boys and girls network or club. This is why Kamala Harris makes things worse and is not good, again, for black people, because she will carry this mentality into the White House, just like Obama. And I'm going to get to him in just a moment. Now, tying this back to the title of the show, is a black vote really a white vote? All votes are white votes because no matter who the minority or black candidate, they will side with the conservative white voices and either alienate themselves from black people, which she has done, to show that they are for everyone, even though black people specifically have been ignored for over 400 years. When is it going to just be our turn to just sit in the spotlight of concern? Every time we take a seat in the spotlight of concern, other groups push us out of the chair, push us out of the way, sit down and say, but me, but wait, what about me? And those other groups have already been given preferential treatment. Black people need allies, just like any other group. We have been waiting on reparations for over 400 years, while other groups immigrate to America with 3 Ks and receive low-interest loans, homes, businesses, while black people continually get denied and deterred. So in my opinion, and this is what I think this sort of boils down to, black people are only focused on a few things when it comes to electing a black politician. Do they speak well? Do they dress nice? Do they go against every negative stereotype of black people visually? It's all superficial. Not whether they can help and make changes to the problems in the black community. So my question to any black presidential candidate is very simple. What are you going to do to help black Americans receive reparations? And if you can't answer that question satisfactorily, to me, okay, I don't want anything to do with you. And I don't want to hear about Congress, okay, that's the political body that handles that. I don't want to hear you say you, okay, are gonna, you can't control that. What I want to hear is that you're going to roll up your sleeves, okay, and you're going to get to work on a comprehensive reparations package passed and enacted, much like in the same way that Obama did with the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. This is the type of energy that black people need, okay, from black politicians. Obama spoke boldly and literally moved heaven and earth to get that passed, Affordable Care Act, without apology. And those same words that he used to justify that can be easily used to get black Americans reparations that we certainly deserve. Now, with that being said, let's take a closer look at the last few presidents of the United States and how they have hurt the black community, even when we voted for our first black president. Okay, you Obamas, you Obamaites. Is that what they'd be called? Obamaites? Anyway, the audacity of hope. And this is on Jacob N. Mag, JACOBINMAG.com. The Obama presidency was a disaster for middle class wealth in the United States. Okay, so the article goes on to say that between 2007 and 2016, the average wealth of the bottom 99% dropped by $4,500. Now get this. Over the same period, the average wealth of the top 1% rose by $4.9 million. Now, this drop that hit the housing wealth of African Americans was extremely hard, okay? So you have the home equity, right, that was at stake. And black wealth, it took it some time. It did recover, okay, between 2007 and 2016, but the average black home equity was still at about $16,000. So the article goes on to say that you could argue that you could lay this disparity and this problem at the feet of President Obama because it was his housing policies that led directly to millions of families losing their homes. And this is what people don't want to talk about. They want to talk about how beautiful Michelle is and Sasha, Malia, and how talented they are. But millions of families lost their homes under Obama. Okay, and he had the power, the money, the legislative tools, and the legal leverage, okay, to fix and prevent that foreclosure crisis from getting as bad as it did. So after the 2008 collapse, the Wall Street banks, okay, remember they got $800 billion for TARP, the Troubled Asset Relief Package. He moved heaven and earth again, or he moved it to get them that money, okay, to save the country. Now, according to one estimate, this blew my mind, okay? They received, okay, these banks and auto industry and insurance companies, and a staggering $29 trillion. That's with a T, tango, $1 trillion. And Americans scoff at the $17 trillion reparations price tag. But think about this. Corporations, banks, Wall Street, they received nearly double that in 2008. Okay? Think about that. So the money's there, and as always, F you, pay me. All right? Now, ironically, again, the country says we can't afford it. But the Obama administration designed and implemented this foreclosure or this relief effort for the banks and then the homeowners. So it was a failure for the homeowners affecting black people, but a success for white America and corporations. All right, so let's keep this going. Obama's State of the Union address on January 27th. This was his first one. Okay, and this is in solidarity-us.org. What I found most striking about President Barack Obama's first State of the Union, okay, this was on January 27th, was what he didn't say, okay? He talked about 25 tax cuts that his administration has already given to business, okay, with more on the way, while saying his tax cuts did go to 95% of all Americans, okay? And he refused to note how discrimination is still alive and well, and its special impact on blacks, Latinos, Native Americans, and other ethnic minorities. Now, Obama tells African Americans that the positive programs the government is working on will benefit all social groups equally. In other words, Obama accepts the conservatives' argument that by improving the situation for the middle and upper class in general, it will lift the poor, including African Americans, no need for special programs, which is a lie. It's kind of like that old analogy, a rising tide raises all boats. Okay, the tide comes in the evening, whatever boats are there at the dock, all the boats are going to rise. The problem is black people ain't got no boats. In that analogy, we're just floating in the water. We ain't got no boat. All right, so these inequalities exist and they're built into the market system. So the bottom line, Obama's speech was not in the tradition of Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or at all. But Booker T. Washington would have been proud. So again, was our black vote really a white vote? I say yes. Now, we're going to move on to George W. Bush. And this is a no-brainer. After Hurricane Katrina, that's pretty much what all and any black people needed to see. You know, Kanye said it best, George Bush doesn't like black people because of the slow response to help the poor black people that needed the assistance. And I think most of us know it was a land grab by wealthy white people. They wanted poor people out. So they just let the flood get worse and worse without helping. And George Bush knew that most of the black people in those areas didn't vote for him. So he was in no rush. That's why he just flew over to look down. So I would obviously say anybody, and I don't know who would have voted for George Bush that was black, but we know he didn't like us. So let's move on. Bill Clinton. This is a really interesting one. Blacks voted in large numbers for Bill Clinton twice. Okay, twice. And really, there was this running joke that he was the first black president just because he could play a saxophone. Makes no sense to me. So here are the three ways that the 1994 crime bill continues to hurt the black community. Number one, it authorized the death penalty for 60 new federal laws or offenses. And these are known as the direct descendant of lynching. The death penalty has always targeted and terrorized black folks. And it says Latinos, okay? The crime bill's federal death penalty permitted the use of death, again, on 60 offenses, drug offenses not related to a homicide. Now, that's key there. drug offenses. All right, so 74% of the defendants with the death penalty recommendations from federal prosecutors were, go figure, black people. They say people of color, but I say black people. And 44% were black, and then, 21% were Hispanic, but we're focused on black people. Racial disparities in capital punishment persist to this day, and that's not a secret, okay? And then for those who don't know, U.S. Attorney General Barr reinstituted, I should say, the federal death penalty. So don't be confused. They want to kill more black men. All right, number 2 for Clinton. 3 strikes and you are out. He imposed mandatory life sentences for individuals with 3 or more strikes. Terrible. All right, now here's the 3rd. He levied harsh penalties for justice-involved youth. And this goes to the school to prison pipeline and the increased racial disparities in juvenile justice. He even used the term, Hillary did, super predators. So there's a crime bill where you have 13-year-old children that are going to be tried and were tried as adults. And they could serve life in prison if convicted. And that happened. All right, so the other thing that made this thing worse was that the bill included funding for school resource officers. So basically they spent money to hire more cops, to put in the schools, to arrest children, to put them in prison for life. That's it in a nutshell. So 90% were targeted and they were black. So again, the question, was your black vote really a white vote when you voted for Clinton? Bill Clinton? Yes, in my opinion. All right, here we go. Here's the final one. Ronald Reagan, bastard. This man, as it's recently been discovered, was on a phone call with Nixon and he called Africans monkeys and they weren't used to wearing shoes. But let's talk about what he did to black people. Okay, after taking office in 1981, Reagan began a sustained attack on the government's civil rights apparatus. He opened an assault on affirmative action and social welfare programs. He embraced the white racist leaders of the then apartheid South Africa and waged war on a tiny black Caribbean nation. So he made no excuses. He wasted no time. He jumped in and he started to attack. All right. And during his 2 terms, Reagan solidified, and came to personify America's move to the political right. All right. His greatest legacy is as the leader that helped to propel the shift where the word liberal became a dirty word and Democrats would cower. Interesting. So the shift was so pronounced and so profound that black America giddily embraced Bill Clinton, despite his promotion of programs like criminal justice and welfare policies in particular. So it really just came down to Reagan was such an evil person, and we wanted anybody but him, and we wound up getting somebody less bad. Still bad, but we just wanted somebody less bad. So again, the question, is a black vote really a white vote? And on that, a yes, in my opinion, it was, and it still is. It's terrible. So here's some other things that Reagan did that were absolutely despicable. Okay? As I stated, he supported racism with remarks like welfare queens. And here's something that actually sounds like Trump. Okay? He fired U.S. Commission on Civil Rights members who were critical of his civil rights policies, including his strong opposition to affirmative action programs. And one of the commissioners, Mary Frances Berry, who now chairs the commission okay, or at the time, recalls that a judge who overturned the dismissal did so because you can't fire a watchdog for biting. So in essence, Reagan got mad that the leader of a watchdog group called him out, exposed him, then he fired her, and a judge said, no, I'm not going to do that. You can't fire somebody for doing their job by calling you out on your bullshit. Then he went on to appoint Clarence Thomas, who was a horrible Supreme Court justice. And, there's a series of actions and activities that all these presidents have engaged in where seemingly they were reaching their hand out to help black people, but all the while they had no intention of really actually doing it. They just did it for the vote. That's all they did. It's for the vote, which is not surprising, I know. But because no president ever brings any real energy to help black people, I mean, even after 400 years of slavery, and I will always go to that, we built this bitch. My conclusion is that the black vote is really a white vote. Therefore, I will not be voting, because I don't expect to hear anything different, because after 200 years of presidents, nothing has changed, and I don't expect that it will, and I will continue to complain just as vociferously about the bullshit, even while not voting, because black people, that vote is not worth the paper it's printed on. So you vote, you complain, you get nothing. You don't vote, you complain, you get nothing. So what's the difference? Exactly nothing. And you can miss me with our ancestors died so we can have the right to vote. Now, while this is a true statement, the only problem is they really believed, because it had never happened before, that it would make a difference. And that was the right mindset. But now, after 50 years, 60 years, we know that it really doesn't. And that's sad. Well, I'm certain you have your own thoughts on the topic, and keep the conversation going as usual. I think it's important. I'm not going to be voting for Kamala Harris. I don't think you should either, but it's your choice. That's if she gets the Democratic nomination. All right. Well, I want to thank you for checking out another podcast of We Ain't Scared Talk. My name is A1, and you got some good food for thought. Listen again. Tell a friend. We ain't scared.